single pane of glass. This webinar is brought to you by J9 Technologies. Today's webinar is hosted and moderated by myself, Sandy Schubert. I am one of the Vivid BSM Special Interest Group leaders. I've been part of the HP partner community for over 10 years now, and am currently the Director of Program Management for J9 Technologies. Our presenter today is Clay Roach. He is the CEO and founder of J9 Technologies. He has started his career fighting production outages, performance issues, and other 911s for over a decade, and now spends his time advising Fortune 500 clients on how to streamline incident management and operations to prevent these problems from reoccurring. He's been a developer, an architect, a consultant, manager, advisor, pre-sales engineer, head of sales, troubleshooter, and author. He now manages the best team of consultants on the planet and has developed software to help integrate the hundreds of tools that his customers are using. Some housekeeping. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivid website, visible for all members. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via email once they are posted to the Vivid website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel. Here's a picture of the GoToWebinar control panel that usually occurs in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the question pane is expanded, and type in your question and click on Send. So let's get started. I will pass it over to Clay.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandy. We got a lot of content to go through here today, and looking forward to sharing the next hour with you guys. So I'm going to go through a few slides here and spend a little bit of time going through how we've performed integrations into a single pane of glass for some of our customers, and then some tips and tricks on how best to perform that for you or your customers. And then I'll go into a couple demos, show some of our product and integrations, and then wrap it up with a dashboard presentation and some Q&A at the end. So thanks again for joining. So first of all, I know this is a term, single pane of glass has been a term that's been thrown around for quite some time. It's not like this is a new concept. I struggle sometimes with the right definition. Oftentimes we get asked what is this single pane of glass, this thing, and really why do we need it? So I've come across a definition which I think works and resonates for us and the IT organizations that we work with. Really, where the pane of glass is really more about presenting a personalized or very specific view into the IT system's health that is not only data collector independent, but also context relative, and presents a view of the overall service health. So this can be mixed and matched depending on whatever data source you're pulling from. Whether it's a native HP product, RUM or BPM or diagnostics or Sitescope or OM, or third-party tools. So we'll talk a little bit later about the process for taking in, normalizing, and then giving some context to that data. So the real key to concept to understand in terms of a pane of glass here is that it's a way to gather and normalize data all in one location, and then present views on top of that data that are context sensitive, that will show specific application metrics if you're a line of business or application owner, or if you're an executive, you want to understand the overall system that are relative to you. Why do we even have a talk about this single pane of glass? Really, the goal here is, you want to fix stuff quicker. It's all about reducing, mean time to repair, mean time to remediation. By centralizing the data all in one place, we can also set up automated actions on known event types, and that allows us to quickly remediate. But let's face it, it's the last thing that most of you want to do is get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because the application is down. But if it is, you want to be able to quickly be able to restore service and even automate that process. The other goal here too is, and I think we probably, from a technology standpoint, it's relatively straightforward. I think the bigger challenge we run into is just the complex political, and organizational challenges between different groups. There's often been a set of tools that have evolved over a long period of time. Some that have maybe been in your organization for 5, 6, 7, 10 years, some 2 months, and various levels of knowledge and expertise to go along with them. I think that we're getting to a point where there's no real one set of tools or vendor that can say they can supply a full best-of-breed set of tools and solutions. So the goal that we have, and one of the things we're actively working with many of our customers to do, is just to help break down some of those silos, and part of that is to help to normalize the data and to get it all in one place. So that you can perform more higher level and provide more value back to the line of business or applications that you're monitoring. And then the last one is just communication, right? I think half of this is providing a near real-time status of applications and about the service, whether it's network service or the status of an end user application or a database. Part of this, the goal of this is a communication tool, rather than having to call somebody or email or get somebody that's out of the office to find out how the application is working. You can very quickly ascertain that by having this holistic view of the underlying IT systems that are comprising what are becoming more and more complicated applications. So this often this is the scenario that we're walking into in a NOC or in an operational environment where there's 10, 15, 30 screens setting up on the wall, being used NASA style to see when there's a problem. But oftentimes data is coming in inconsistently at different rates. The visualizations are very different, and so for an end user or operator to understand and be able to delineate and basically grok the various differences between the visualizations is a challenge, right? So there's a training that would have to occur for every single tool that a NOC operator would otherwise be having to deal with, or even just an application support engineer. So the goal here is to once again, very quickly ascertain where the problem is, drill down to root cause, and the first place to start there is having that holistic view of all the data, metrics, events, and topology in your infrastructure. As we've seen in the over the course of the last 5, 6 years, with especially with cloud environments becoming more prevalent, a lot of our larger customers even have either internal hybrid cloud or partial external cloud, SaaS, IaaS, all the buzzwords basically mean that it means there's complexity, and where there's complexity, there's a need to understand and normalize applications and flows of data between various subsystems. So between on-site hosted databases, or if you have SAP, or a variety of development or programming languages, being able to pull all that data together independent of where those applications or components are deployed is very fundamental. And the ability to, or the need to be able to pull and data from each one of those systems and understand the health of those and how they interrelate to one another is becoming a bit more complex. As I was going through, I realized there's really a set of levels that we've seen for developing that that single pane. And once again, some of the ideas here are not really new. Anybody that's been doing operations management for the last 10, 15 years or more has seen this idea come up. It's not relatively new, but we're now leveraging though more complex topologies, more complex applications. So foundationally, you're going to start out with an events only scenario, whether that's pulling events from SNMP or OPC messages, like BSM, any other third parties, and we've been doing that for many years, probably before since the 90s, let's say, at least specifically with the HP side of the stack. The next level of integration is really more what we're talking about today. So being able to take not only events but also correlating metrics along with topology information, and a new addition is also log and unstructured data. So being able to combine all those four elements together is critical to being able to define a structure that you can build that pane of glass on top of. So having events is important, but unless you can understand the events within context and within the topology of your application or infrastructure, they become less meaningful. So in addition, some of the things that have evolved in the last few years are advanced analytics tools, service health analytics. There's other tools in this space that can take metrics and be able to correlate both metrics and log data as well, to be able to pinpoint violations of baselines and so on. So having all of that come together in a single model, which is very, very well supported by the BSM platform, is becoming more important. The challenge that we often are asked is, what's important? I think, part of the, and we'll talk about this a little bit in terms of approach, but it's something to think about. You can pull down 500, 10,000, 100,000 different metrics from an event or domain manager, but you need to have some level of context and understanding of what's actionable, what's important out of each one of those domain managers from an operational standpoint, and that can set a basis for how and when you collect data, and that's we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. And then the last level, and this is I kind of call it it's more simple way to get to a single pane of glass without kind of the deep level integration. Is putting a dashboard on top. Something, we have a product called JDash. The HP Executive Scorecard does this to some extent. But the idea behind this is to be able to take a mashup of multiple data sources, whether BSM, SiteScope, ServiceNow, N&M, and pull all those various sources into a single pane without the back-end integration of all those as well. So we'll go into that a little bit more here later in the presentation. So in terms of the steps, for defining dashboards, I think as with any design and implementation effort, one of the first ones that we see left out is discovery. So you've got to start with somewhere and understanding where. We get a lot of questions with some of our customers who ask, I want a dashboard, but they really don't know what they want in it. They want to see their applications, but until you actually show an example dashboard and you can talk through the various components and how do you want to lay them out, you have to have a starting point. Otherwise, you could go down the path of pulling out all the data and all the metrics and then finding that 90% of it is irrelevant to the end user that you're actually building this window into their application for. So part of that is also then discussing, the relevant KPIs specific to the end user. So for instance, if you're an operations dashboard, then you're looking mainly at, operational or actionable events, disk space getting full, something along those lines that allow you to very quickly isolate and remediate issues from an operational standpoint. If it's an application owner or line of business, then understanding, whether or not your application is performing under its SLA. Sometimes there's financial penalties tied to that, and being able to be proactive from a business standpoint is more the types of elements that you're going to put on a dashboard specific to a line of business or application owner. And then, executive dashboard also, is another in that same, the same idea there. And, we've we've had a few requests come in lately that, we want to make them all green, and it has a 30-minute delay. Probably not the best real-world representation, but, I've seen that happen a few times. Next step is really defining the metrics and the events from the domain manager. Often this is the more difficult step because it requires getting pretty in depth with each one of the domain experts, as well as then the team who's going to take action on the data coming out of that particular domain manager. So for instance, databases, Oracle for instance has a ton of metrics that are available to it in the $$ tables in a typical Oracle database or rack structure, but understanding which are specific and important to the person taking action on those events or on those metrics is very important. So once again, you don't want to pull everything. You want to pull things that are relevant. Oftentimes, what we'll do is take a list of P1 or critical incidents. And use that as a basis for determining, what should we be monitoring, what should we be pulling out of some of those source domain managers in order to be able to keep the data, actionable. Next step is mapping the relationships between the elements. So sometimes there's out-of-the-box topologies. If you've got, uCMDB and you're using, UD discovery, then you can use those CMDB models as a starting point. But in some cases, you can simplify that, and so the goal out of the model is really to keep it as simple as possible. Don't get don't get lost in the weeds. It's easy to make a model overly complex, and then only to find that you've got to take it and rip it out and start over again. So I've seen a number of cases where the application model started out with one idea, but they get used in a very different use case. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that the monitoring use cases are very different than service and asset management use cases that are going to be taking out of a standard CMDB. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you're building the RTSM model inside of BSM. The next step is validating data flow between the elements. This is actually the part of getting the data between the domain or element manager into BSM connector, or we have a product that called our accelerators, which can accelerate that process for doing that integration, and then pushing it over to BSM or any other manager of managers, NetCool or whatever event management tool you may be using in house. This is we spend a lot of time and effort doing this, and so we do have a nice troubleshooting guide that we can discuss with you on how to go about that. And then the last one is really iteratively going through dashboard development. So once you have your data and you have topologies, there's going to be a couple of design sessions and iterations to get the dashboards looking and getting the look and feel right for the end consumer of that data. In terms of going about it, we've seen we've done this many times is building one-off integrations between tools. We started out a few years ago starting to do these integrations, and the challenge that we run into is that they can be difficult to maintain. In some cases, those integrations can be brittle, especially for applications or domain managers that are going through revisions, 2, 3, 4 releases a year or patches. Sometimes they can break that integration. So you can build these as one-off. And the other, I'd say the only challenge there is there's a bit to learn. So there's a little bit of learning curve there in terms of understanding runtime service model, CMDB fundamentals, the site scope, underlying EMS adapters, OM policies, and then, ultimately some of the domain managers and APIs you're integrating into. So, don't expect these integrations per tool to happen in days. I mean, you're looking at weeks, and, knowing many of the operators and teams that we work with, the amount of time they get to actually work on integrations is pretty small compared to actually helping with production outages and issues and so on. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. And we'll talk about a case study a little bit later with another customer that started this and gone through this process. Second option is hire a services company or HP services, J9 services. We've done this many times as well. It's really a variation of number two. It's just a more of an outsourced model to go about getting these integrations done. We certainly have done our fair share of services around building integrations, but the challenge we had was that as soon as those integrations broke or there's an upgrade to the domain manager, we were often called in, but it was not a product we were supporting, so we'd have to go and sell additional services hours, and it's not really a great model that we found that works with our customers. So what we've done in the last few years is to develop what we're calling our accelerators, and the idea behind our accelerators is to take events, metrics, and topology information from a whole host of best-of-breed point solutions, ones that we encounter in a majority of our customers' application stacks, and integrate with those with out-of-the-box configuration. So, in other words, we've taken the idea of doing one-off integrations and put it into our own platform, and then only requiring pretty simple integration or pretty simple information in order to be able to integrate those third-party tools in. So in other words, if you've got, I'll go through this example later, App Dynamics, for instance, we really only ask for a couple things: username, password, which port the controllers are running on, and then we'll automatically pull in that data. The goal of the accelerators, once again, it's not something that you couldn't, some of this you could do yourself, but the value here is getting up and running in hours, not months or weeks or months. And certainly the promise of being able to deliver an end-to-end integrated and ops bridge solution is what we're normally looking for. Pretty simple integration, simple install. We have packaged dashboards, and this is just a good example of a combined BSM dashboard with data coming from Eternity, BSM, SiteScope, RUM, diagnostics, etc. So I'm actually going to go and I've got a couple of slides here, but I'm actually going to go ahead and boot over to a demo real quick. Give me one sec. Actually, before we get started, I think we should be able to do a polling question. So I would like to understand, who out there has built their own integrations previously into BSM or otherwise, or has started down the path of using the BSM connector.
And the votes are coming in, Clay. Give it a few more seconds here.
Okay.
All right. So about 72% of the audience has voted, and it's still climbing. Give about 10 more seconds here. Okay, the results are posted, Sandy.
Okay, so we have 35% that say yes, they have, and 55% that say no, they have not.
All right.
Okay,
So,
Clay.
am I back on?
You are. We're ready
Okay,
for the
great.
demo.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so it sounds like we've got a little bit of the audience that's gone through and actually built the integrations before. I'm going to go through and show you kind of a quick way to do that using our product, but I'll touch on some of the fundamentals of how you perform an integration using using BSM connector as well. So, with that. So I'm showing here, this is a environment that I have running that has a BSM database, and then our accelerator, which is also running on the same server that has a BSM connector running on it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the accelerator machine that I just showed you there, and go through the process of setting up a new integration. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and hit the applications that are the domain manager we're pulling data from. So this is a App Dynamics environment. So this is just a demo site that we're going to use to perform the integration. Just log in here, my credentials real quick. So App Dynamics, you guys aren't familiar, it's a tool that's used to instrument Java, .NET, and a number of different application types, and pull. It's more or less an APM tool. Some of you may already have it in house. It's a relatively newer tool, but it has a pretty deep set of topology information with it. You can see here there's a web tier, marketing tier, and then at the top level we're actually capturing business transaction as well. So this would be very similar to RUM or BPM transactions in a more pure HP environment. So from here we're going to drill down into some of the application server tiers. We're going to show there's a market tier, there's a trading tier. This is a financial demo, so hence the trading application. And then under the trading tier, you can see the pretty simple topology off to the right, the trading web tier, and then it's connected to the market tier as well. So that's just kind of a brief overview. Now we're going to go through and configure the accelerator. This is a list of some of the ones we currently have available. And we'll start off with the App Dynamics accelerator. So our software product here is it runs standalone on a BSMC server, and it has a set of selections and menu items to be able to quickly configure an integration. So this is we're going to start out with a polling metric of 1 minute, both for both metrics as well as for events. We're going to plug in, the same domain manager, controller host here that we just saw a few minutes ago. Set the port number, which is just standard port 80. Finally, the username and password. So let me get those typed in real quick. All right, so first thing we'll do is just hit the configure button. That just makes sure that the configuration data is all saved. We'll check it out, make sure that we've entered in all the configuration data properly. Looks like we have. And then the last thing, we'll do a REST connection. So, one of the things we wanted to make sure we did was to have a very clear validation path. Oftentimes doing the integration is challenging and understanding where things break. So the first thing we do then, or the next thing we do, is we're acquiring all of the data. In this case, we're pulling out the various application tiers, nodes, and transactions, and then we're going to go ahead and auto-configure an application. So this is kind of where some of the smarts of our product goes. We're going to pick an application, that financial demo we saw earlier, and then we're going to automatically add a set of metrics and events from that we've discovered, but the ones that we also think are most relevant to an APM application or monitoring tool. This shows the various paths that can also be updated to pull REST metrics out individually. This is you can configure that file based off of the more or less regular expressions that are provided by the AppDynamics product. So we're going to go ahead and start the pull of both metrics and events, and in this case we pulled about 51 metrics. It took about half a second to do that, so it was nice. And then we're going to go ahead and pull down the BSM connector policy. So one of the things we also did was really try to simplify the whole process for doing the integration. So instead of having to go out and write a bunch of TQL or figure out how to build a BSM policy and do all that legwork, we've incorporated that into our accelerator really to make it fast, simple, so you can do these integrations in a matter of minutes as opposed to days and weeks, like I said earlier. So this shows just the connector BSM connector policies. We'll go ahead and log in to the BSM connector UI. And the next thing we'll do is to import those policies. So just going to grab those here real quick. Select the two, and this is going to create both a metrics and an events policy. Once again, that matches what we're pulling from the accelerator. So I'll go ahead and open one of these for metrics, just to validate that the data is going to be flowing through appropriately. We'll go and look at the source. So what we can do, I'm actually going to change this down just to 2 minutes as a pull, and then validate that we can actually pull the metrics out. So everything validates okay. So we'll click OK, and then the next thing we'll do is to activate this policy. What this will do is then start the process in the background of pulling that data based off of the time period that we had just set. And then, as it's pulling the data, it's taking it from the accelerator and then pushing it over into the BSM that we've integrated this BSM connector into. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing for events. Nope, doesn't look like we have event data. That's okay. Looks like we just don't have any major events that have come out of this particular application. Okay, so let's go ahead and activate that event. And we'll keep moving. So, okay, now what we're doing is we're pulling data, and we'll go ahead and from BSM connector over to BSM. We'll go ahead and log into BSM and perform the final couple of steps to get this integrated into BSM. So I'll go ahead and log into the accelerator from the BSM machine, go to our downloads link, and then pull out both the RTSM content pack as well as the OMI content pack. So, one of the things we're also doing is integrations into HP and non-HP products. So, as we develop, additional integrations, we'll have, content packs and dashboards that are included as a part of each one of our accelerators. In some cases, we'll actually be doing those integrations bidirectionally, so both to and from a manager in some cases, but oftentimes our users want to be able to see data within their own specific tool set, and so often, one way to achieve a single pane of glass is to, create that pane in various tools. So as I'm going through right now, I'm actually going to be installing the RTSM content pack as well as the OM content pack. So this is just a 360 view. Currently, we're not really showing anything, but in the background we have the App Dynamics data starting to stream over into BSM, and I'll go ahead and import the OMI content pack. And oh, that's right, we've not defined the CIs. So, yep, that's okay. Well, there are appd errors and number of slow calls and whatnot, and it looks like we don't have that CI. It doesn't exist yet. That's okay. We'll go ahead and close this out and show and pull in the RTSM content pack, which actually contains all those CI type definitions. So go over to the package manager and grab the RTSM content pack. It takes a little while to load. Okay, so we'll go ahead and once again we'll pull down the RTSM pack that we had just downloaded a few minutes ago. So we're in the downloads directory, and you can see here we've got applications tier, transactions, there's views, there's some TCL defined. So this is part of our content pack includes these predefined elements. Okay, so we're imported successfully, and now we just need to go back and import that OMI content pack as well. So this is, once again, this is going to show the relationship between OM or the CIs and the events being created by the data coming from BSM connector. So I was thinking about it. All right, great. So we have some built-in HIs, some rules have now been imported, and we can go back over to BSM and cross our fingers. We should be getting, hey, there we go. So now we've got a new view. This shows the App Dynamics application's been defined, and the only application which we've pulled, or at least defined at this point, which is that financial demo. You can see that the hierarchy is designed here, and it basically mirrors exactly, or pretty close to what App Dynamics had defined in their hierarchy. I'm going to go ahead and just click on this this one business transaction. You can see that the status on this, there's a warning status on this one. And you can see here that these are the various HIs or indicators. You can see that the reason for this is the average response time is almost 7 seconds, and that's outside of the standard definition for, or the standard baseline that's been defined for that particular transaction. So, and again, we also have another node. This is the web trading node, which is more or less the JVM running, and then we have metrics coming from one of the server that's actually running that piece of software. You can see this actually has a low availability based off of that particular metric. Once again, this is reporting data into automatically into the BSM's RTSM. So we have a topology that we can see as a part of the standard MyBSM topology view. And let's go ahead and update this. Great. And there you go. So you can see at the top, or actually if you see the layers here, we have applications and services. At the very top, it's the financial demo, and then all the various dependencies between transactions, the software nodes, and then the underlying, hardware and infrastructure. The last part of the integration that, I wanted to show you here is the event perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and drill in over to the financial demo. I'm actually going to take off the filter here. And I can select any of the events that are now coming that are being pushed over. And you can see this one, actually, let's see, there's the Bundy, that's from the previous integration, and then up at the top is the financial demo. So this is the one that's coming from the most recent integration I just did. And this shows a critical event. The event status has been set over on the app dynamic side. We have a little bit more, detailed information. This is we see that this is a SQL exception happening on this web trade node, and then a, link into that for additional drill down purposes. You can also, of course, within BSM, you can automate the escalation or send that event over for automated remediation. Or open a ticket, for instance, in your service or help desk, and then potentially assign this ticket with all the corresponding data and the link to be able to drill down into the source management tool here as well. So one thing this is basically showing that full end-to-end ability to pull in those third-party domain managers, but keep them relative and within context for a manager of managers within BSM. So with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and pause real quick, and we'll go ahead and jump back over to the slide deck. So BSM is, once again on that topic, is BSM as a manager of managers. It's not enough today to have just events. You really need to pull in the metrics and topology and be able to correlate those together. Metrics and relationships are really first-class citizens, and they're needed for downstream. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but they're necessary for predictive analytics. And of course, topology is it gives you context to high metrics or metrics that are out of bound on a particular component or CI. And the key here is developing, once again, a service-centric point of view. So not just a set of technology relationships, but also being able to create a topology that can relate back to the line of business and show them, in business terms, where their application is failing or where there's problems. This is just a view of the BSM runtime topology. Once again, the power behind the HP platform here is that you're using the underlying CMDB. You can also, federate this CMDB with external CMDBs like HP's or others in order to be able to enhance the relationships that are being drawn and discovered as a part of the monitoring tools. I will say, though, that in our experience, you get enough breadth and depth of CIs and relationships, even just using the base data collectors with BSM, or as you saw earlier, we can pull in topology from those third-party tools as well to create the RTSM topology. And one side benefit that this also does for us is that instead of having to run a UD discovery scan once a day or once a week, which obviously has a bit of a granularity issue, we're actually updating the topology via our accelerators in near real time, right? So we're going out and polling those data sources, discovering the runtime topology of application servers and JVMs and network nodes, and all of that is being updated in the RTSM in real time, along with status and events and metrics at the same time. So from the once you have the data in the BOM or in, centralized, you can do a lot of great things. So, upstream we can do predictive analytics, either, HP Service Health Analyzer. You may have other tools in-house like, DC Operations Manager, Netuitive. All these are great tools, but, they rely on having a quantity and quality of data coming from, a number of disparate sources in order to be able to perform a, really holistic analytics exercise. Service health and then reporting, like HP Service Health Reporter, to be able to do cross-domain reporting. Other tools that can be, live on top of this is, Tableau, and we also have a dashboard, JDash, which I'll show here in a minute as well, to get real-time dashboards as well. The last two, so orchestration, we have a customer we'll talk about in a minute that's given a, taken high level of, or gotten a high level of use out of orchestration, either to automate incident remediations or to, auto ticket into other ITSM tools like ServiceNow or HP Service Management, and really create that end-to-end, clip or, automated incident management where, as soon as an event or a health violation occurs in your application or infrastructure, it bubbles up into OMI, and then you can automatically ticket and assign that to the owner of that CI, which is and then ultimately hold them accountable, make sure that once that issue does occur, that they're responsible for mediating that issue. And then lastly, operations analytics. Having the ability to pull log and event metric data together and see the correlate that data together and be able to rewind, replay some of those events is another powerful upstream integration once you start to get all the data into the single pane or into the BOM. So just to kind of drill down a couple of these, I think you probably may have seen these if you've been to previous Vivit webinars or HP events. I'll just touch on them a little bit real quick here, though. Service Health Analyzer, really the goal of SHA is to take metric data and correlate that and make sure that it's staying within the anticipated bounds that have been calculated over a period of time. So in other words, it looks for deviations outside of the norms, and as soon as it detects a deviation, then it'll send you an event that the problem is occurring, or ideally it's going to send you an event before that problem actually manifests itself. Next thing, I also wanted to show here actually is that in addition to showing the variation in metric data, you can also it'll correlate against planned outages, so you don't get false positives, as well as it detects change events, so that you can correlate the deviations of metrics also with changes that are occurring in your environment. Secondly, HP Operations Analytics. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but being able to take some of that machine data, events and metrics, and also use it for guided troubleshooting, additional visual analytics, as well as just log searching. So similar to what at a very base level, being able to search along the machine data that's being harnessed by various data collectors is kind of the base level, but the things Operations Analytics does on top of it, above what say Splunk or some of those others do, is provide more visualization and additional kind of guided troubleshooting to help pinpoint root cause and rewind, replay sequences of events to determine how to restore service as a part of a remediation process. The other thing I touched on earlier was HPOO to help automate remediation. Once again, you can set up specific events so that once they are, once those events fire, you can automate either, clearing out a file system, or even so far as to spin up additional VMs to be able to deal with auto provisioning and auto scaling your applications. I want to talk a little bit. So we actually did another webinar. I had the fortune to work with some of the folks at DirecTV. You guys are probably aware DirecTV is leading provider of digital television entertainment services. They have a pretty varied IT operations with 8,000 servers growing to about 12,000, number of different application types. And like a lot of our customers, they have a whole slew of tools. They've gone out and purchased tools that are best of breed in a lot of cases. They still have been, but they've had a long history with HP. They still see that as their core platform, and they wanted a way to be able to quickly integrate some of those other tools together that may have been purchased either by siloed groups or other groups that had specific requirements that were that internal IT team didn't have a tool specifically to deal with. So, we spent a little bit of time with them in the last couple of years, working with them on, rolling out BSM, and then more recently on integrating both Eternity and App Dynamics into their BSM environment, which we're actually wrapping up the last of this week. So, one of the challenges they had were, kind of cultural challenge, just not having, using emails and inbox as an event console, not a lot of tools visibility, lots of shadow operations, less visibility in call center impacts and, inefficiencies in processing and tracking a lot of those events. And then lastly, something we see quite a bit of is, alert storms that are, causing, lots of confusion and impact without knowing, where the actual root cause of those events are coming from. By integrating their the number of the various tools into the HP operations bridge, they probably mostly benefited from the automation side. So, this can be a quality of life saver for you if you're in an IT organization that's getting pages night after night. So by being able to tie events into HP operations orchestration, they can quickly escalate and ensure that the operators are notified whenever an event occurs, and then ideally remediate that problem before it impacts more users. A couple other things is incident ticketing and integration with ITSM to be able to ticket the actionable events. So rather than having these ticketing or these alert storms by using OMI and doing some of the stream-based and other correlation, they're able to reduce the core number of events, and then for the ones that are actionable to be able to ticket if there's not an an immediate or understood orchestration or runbook. And then as they moved along, they've been able to provide more of a reference platform to other groups. And the biggest thing is really empowering the NOC to understand production applications and understand before there's problems. The last thing I want to talk about is a product that kind of brings it all together for our standpoint. So we've seen a little bit, and I know a number of you have probably utilized the HP dashboards. You kind of love them or hate them, or somewhere in between. We've had a lot of requests from customers over a number of years to be able to develop more customized views that are more domain specific, or they don't frankly just don't require you having to log into a BSM console. So we've worked with another partner to develop and to sell a product that allows you to very easily construct dashboards using native data sources like BSM, SiteScope, NNM, ServiceNow. There's a number of different data collector types, and this really is kind of from a top-down perspective. We can very quickly drag and drop and connect components into a really useful and powerful dashboard. So I'm actually going to kind of wrap this with a demo of JDash. So let me pop over to JDash screen. So you can see here, this is just standard dashboard. We have a little bit more in terms of the kind of visual effects here. These elements can move around. This is also backed by a JavaScript engine, so it's customizable. You can apply CSS or style sheets. You can make it look very more similar to what your corporate standard is. And that's really been a really powerful part of this as well, is to really take the level of customization. There's a ton of data, and the power of the BSM platform is such that it really provides a great data set and integration point. And this is that last kind of fit and finish, the last mile to really make the data look pretty. So here's a good example. We have synthetic end users, and you can hover over these and see performance based off of network, server, download time. Once again, this is fed by synthetic VPN monitors. Real user monitoring data also plotted out over the same period of time. And then this is a Citrix environment, so we were actually looking at the health of various Citrix servers in a single pane. It's just another example of another dashboard showing just overall end user experience. You can hover over these and see the performance of the various transactions in these that are executing from these VPN locations. And you can see this one is in a warning state. I'll quickly go through a couple of these. This is just a kind of a logical view of an architecture. You can really pretty much, you're open to do a lot, which is a little bit of a blessing and a curse because there's a lot of power in this and a lot of flexibility. You can build really great dashboards, and if you don't really have a visual eye, you can build really bad dashboards. So it takes a little practice. We have built-in existing dashboards that you can try out, plug in your own data sources, move things around, and that's usually a good starting point. Typically don't like to try to start exactly from scratch unless you're a UI or UX wizard. Slash dashboard is just an online banking application. Has a little bit more cool, sexy graphics. Puts a nice face on top of the BSM product. And the last thing I'm going to show on here is there's a the administration side of this is pretty straightforward. You can basically just add additional connectors based off of data type. So BSM, site scope, network node manager. These are also there's generic versions of these being rolled out, so you can connect generically to other third-party data sources. So this is kind of a more or less a top-down way of doing dashboarding as opposed to the fully integrated accelerator version that we were talking about a little earlier. And then from here, it's relatively straightforward to create a new dashboard. You can slide over here and let's discard them. Don't save changes. And I'll just show you how easy it is. There's a shape. Okay, we'll keep that shape. We'll find a good color as green. Warning color, we'll do that as yellow. And error color we'll do as red. And we'll add a data source to it. How about, great, we've got site scope, it's gone out and discovered some of that. We've got BSM data here. We'll look at the CPU on that particular host, and we'll save it, and there you go. So we actually automatically already have status. This is pulling directly out of site scope, and you can see the overall status of the CPU on this server is good. And we've created a dashboard in, I guess, probably about a minute. So I think that's a new record. All right. So thank you, everybody. I know I'm right at the top of the hour. I'm going to give a couple more minutes over to wrap up the get a couple last words about Vivid, and go from there. If you want to know anything about what we talked about today, feel free to reach out to myself or sales@j9tech.com. And with that.
Okay, we did want to open it up. If you have any questions, please type them into your pane. We have a few here. Just wanted to throw out to you, Chloe. The first one is, what's the most challenging aspect of building VSM connector integrations that you found? Clay?
Sorry, go ahead. I missed that.
That's okay. What's the most challenging aspect of building VSM connector integrations that you found?
You know, honestly, I think part of it's understanding each one of the various domain managers. It's once you've done a couple, then you have a good idea of what the model should look like. But the first time we encountered an APM tool, we didn't know exactly what we needed to look for and which metrics and how those should relate. So I think that really that discovery part and understanding the APIs and what's available to each one of those domain managers was probably the more difficult of or more challenging aspect.
Okay. And the other question that we have is, what are the other planned accelerators that you have coming up?
Okay, so we've got a number of them coming up. We have I think we mentioned Splunk up there earlier. We have Wiley. We have let's see, we already have Eternity, Dynatrace, and AppDynamics. We're looking at SolarWinds as well. Honestly, insert your favorite here. Frankly, we're open to suggestions, and a lot of that's driven by customer demand. So we're open and always looking for customers who have an interest.
Okay. We have one question about the cost of the accelerators. I'm sure that that's something that you can address if someone wants additional information after the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to stay pretty aligned to where HP sets their pricing in terms of doing it. For instance, we do an OAS instance based. We try to keep it simple and something that's scalable and retains value over a long period. I'm happy to talk more specifically about pricing. We keep it just base level. It ends up being about a tenth or so of the total cost of the domain managers we're integrating into, but kind of depends on the type. So, and the other thing I also wanted to mention there as well is that we may the Vivid audience. I know we have a few other resellers. We do have a partner program, and we are also we're onboarding additional resellers. We've done a few of those deals before as well. So if you other resellers out there, if you have customers or would have an interest in this, feel free to reach out as well.
Okay, and there's one more. Is VPV one of the integrations that's being considered?
Good question. Not currently at this point. I think a lot of the native integrations we're trying to work pretty close with HP on and getting an understanding their timeline. We've actually worked pretty closely with the R&D organization over the last couple of years to make sure that we're doing integrations that they're not doing and vice versa. So currently we don't have a plan for VPV, but if there's a immediate need for that, then certainly we'd like to talk about it. Some of the things upcoming are a more generic integration adapter that's going to allow us to push data over into a variety of tools in the HP portfolio, whether Service Health Reporter or Ops Analytics or BSM. That back-end connection is it's going to be a little bit easier to push data into, independent of the data, the MOM or the analytics tool that we're integrating into.
Okay, and is there a roadmap from SiteScope, OM, and SPIES to monitoring, automation, management pack, and SHR?
I don't know if I don't understand that question quite certainly. Can you read it again, perhaps?
That's from Greg. Greg, could you maybe restate that question in the panel? For collectors. Roadmap from SiteScope, OM, SPIES to monitoring, automation, management packs, and SHR for collectors and reporting.
I'm not exactly sure. I think I may have to follow up with that one after the discussion here. So
yeah, Greg, we can follow up with you on that question. Okay, so I think we're a little bit running over our time here, but we have a couple more slides of information for you here. So you don't want to miss tomorrow's webinar with HP Software, which is Look No Hands, How Automation Benefits IT Operations. That's tomorrow from 11 to 12 Eastern Standard Time, and it complements this presentation very well. You'll learn how IT operations teams are achieving 75% less mean time to repair and gaining 99.999%, that's a lot, and SLA performance, as well as 300% ROI in their first year. Listen to real use cases where predictive analytics integration with Operations Bridge saves the day. And then it's also not too late to sign up for HP Discover Barcelona, so hopefully you'll be able to attend that. And we would just like to thank you for attending today's webinar. Be sure to complete the short survey after the webinar ends and opt in to receive additional information from J9 Technologies. Just a reminder that the webinar recording and slide deck will be posted to the Vivid website. In the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. So thanks again and have a great day.